of that. It's difficult to think of something that we do that we haven't learned from imitating others, from the ways that we dress. In fact, even dressing at all. Have you guys ever seen a newborn baby? What's the newborn baby? What's he wearing when they're born? Nothing. Everything from there forward is going to be imitation. We learn how to imitate sounds to form language. We learn how to dress by looking at other people. Like we learn to dress, and we learn to walk, and we learn to fill in the blank, speak, anything from imitating others. And then we oftentimes will take that, a little something from there to make it our own. Even speech patterns, you can tell a lot of times where a person's from just based off of the ways in which they speak. I mean, hell, you can even tell sometimes where people are from based on how they behave. If someone's from Florida, we can usually guess that one, right? But there's some people that you can just tell from the way that they carry themselves, even like what part of town they're from. And all of that is a function of imitation. And so it's funny that we learn this way, and we learn universally this way, and then we get angry at people who are copiers and imitators. We'll say, don't copy me, don't imitate me. Why not? Isn't that how we all learn most things? It's uncomfortable for some people because a lot of us like to think, no, I do everything original. I have my own thoughts, I have my own... you have your own combination of these things, for sure. But if let's say that somebody is just kind of a carbon copy of someone else, well, shouldn't they just be that thing then? In other words, if, I don't know what to say, like if you have like a friend of yours who you think is right about everything, doesn't it make sense then that you just kind of repeat what they say because you believe that they're right about everything? And then you might say, well, no, you shouldn't copy them. Well, why not? What if you think they're right about stuff? What if someone dresses in such a way that you really like the way that they dress, and you try it and you really like the way that you look? It's odd. We get really angry at people for not being themselves. Well, what if the person you are is just a carbon copy of someone else? Then you're asking a person to fake being different, in which case they're not really different. They're just fake. So is it that we prefer people who are fake over people who are real? But then, of course, if someone dresses or talks or behaves too far out there, well, that's too much now. So we don't want that person around either because they're weird. We have this thing where we don't want people in these extremes. We want people kind of all in the middle, but isn't that exactly where imitation happens? All of that stuff that's in the middle there. So what we're looking for is something like that makes us comfortable, but we don't like somebody who's copying us or imitating us because then we sense that kind of detracts from our own originality and who we are. It's worth always looking into those things. Why is it that if someone acts like me, why does it bother me so much? Is it because of that? Or is there something deeper going on? But what Vonnegut's saying here, he's saying we are what we pretend to be. So we should be careful what it is that we pretend to be. Think about that. Think about the things that people pretend to be that they absolutely are not. Some people pretend to be really, really smart. Why? Because they want to be smart, of course. But then, of course, if you are smart, does that mean that you actually are that thing? No. It's a better perception. People may perceive you to be that thing. But then when it comes time to get answers for something or study for a test or to get help, they're going to turn to you. And if you're not the person who has the answers, you're going to be found out really fast. So one of those things about lying about ourselves that I think I've said in the past is useful. If you're somebody who lies about having run marathons before, well, you learn something important about yourself. You learn that you're someone who wishes that you ran marathons. So now you found out that you feel better about yourself if you actually did that thing. So what do? Well, you should go out and do it then. Doesn't mean you have to win the marathon. Doesn't mean you have to even run the entire thing. You could walk it, that's fine, and you'll finish it, you'll get through it. It may take you a really long time, but you will get through it. And at the end of all of it, now you're someone who can tell the truth about yourself, but you're also someone who can tell the truth about yourself, and this is the hard part, and like who you're describing. So you can tell the truth about yourself and like the truth as well. And that second part is very difficult. Many of us, if we told the truth about ourselves, we really wouldn't like what was coming out of our mouths. It almost comes off as self-deprecating or self-hating. Like if, I won't even, maybe I should do that sometime, make that an assignment. Write an essay describing yourself as you really are. And then, really if you dig into it, again, seeing how happy you'd be with yourself if you described it this way. But that's a good thing, because that discomfort that's there is perhaps the thing that could motivate us to start something positive. Because the first thing we have to do is to tell the truth about ourselves. And then once we tell the truth about ourselves, now we can be the thing that we want to be, if we're unhappy with who we are. But we have to feel that discomfort underneath it at first. I was talking in the last period about the kinds of things that motivate us. And a lot of times we don't actually do anything in life until we feel uncomfortable. If we're comfortable with where we are, I mean, there's no real reason to move. Because we're creatures of comfort. We like it. It takes a very special person to intentionally make themselves uncomfortable so that they can grow. And it's a cliche that growth is only on the other side of discomfort. And it's true. And it's also something that we seem to intuitively know, or at the very least, we say. Now, if we say it, though, now we can kind of conceptualize it. Once we can conceptualize it, now we can see the truth in it. And so sometimes it's just better for us to avoid psychologically those things that make us aware of who we are. So one of the reasons we don't like the student in class who answers all the questions, because it reminds us that we don't have all the answers. We don't like the person who's too good. And the person who we kind of like it when someone fails. It's even nicer sometimes when it's our friend who fails. Some people just absolutely hate it when their friends become successful. And so we might be there to comfort them, like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But really you're thinking, good. It's about time you got brought down to size. Because it's easier to drag people down than it is to elevate. It goes back to what we talked about before, about the difference between creating and destroying. How long would it take you to create a beautiful painting? It would take you an exceptionally long time to develop the skill, and then to get the inspiration, and to execute it, and to see it through. It's much easier just to get a sledgehammer and destroy a painting, or get a single match, pop it, and then, which you don't have to make your own match, you can buy a match, and then set the painting on fire. It's much easier to destroy it than it is to build something up. One of those reasons that we like to criticize things, and it's an odd thing that we oftentimes will see the person who's sarcastic, or the person who's sardonic or angry, and we'll say, wow, they're really smart. No, it's not smart. It's easy to destroy stuff. It's easy to find problems with the things that people say and do. It's easy to find problems in systems. It's very difficult to build up any of those kinds of things. And it's one of the reasons that we like to destroy other people's lives. Because it's so easy to destroy other people's lives, but it's so difficult to build up our own. And, of course, the less time we spend destroying other people's lives, the more time we have to realize the shortcomings of our own. And so we like to distract ourselves. But we should be careful about the things that we pretend to be. Because whether you are that thing, whether you're not that thing, you'll get the reputation for it. And at some point, you're going to have to answer for it. You're going to have to prove it at some point. That's why I can't wait to be a really old man. I'm going to walk around at supermarkets and just talk mad trash to people. I'm going to tell them about how 20 years ago I kicked your ass. Because I'm not going to have to prove it. And who's going to punch an old man? I would, but most decent people wouldn't. Most decent people are just like, get out of here, old man. Or, that's what I thought. And you kind of walk away. I'm going to say all kinds of things later on in life that I'm not going to have to prove, because that's an old person's prerogative. I'm going to talk about how prices used to be reasonable and politicians were honest, and then talk about how wonderful the old days were. I can leave it at that. Questions? Comment? Yeah.
It might be just a bit off topic, but when you said that, how people copy others to fit in, it kind of reminds me of how psychopaths, they copy others.
Yeah.
Like, when I father can see them.
Yeah, and it's a useful comparison too, because remember when we talked about psychopathy, we indicated that psychopaths were essentially just little children in big bodies. The kind of behavior that you'd expect from like a 2-year-old is the kind of behavior that you're going to get from an adult psychopath. Extreme narcissism, inability to take responsibility, an inability to consider consequences for things, feeling emotions very shallowly, not non-personal emotions, shallowly. So not really caring if bad things happen to other people. And again, that goes along with the narcissism. And so, yeah, narcissists will have to look at others to learn how to behave. And then, of course, little kids have to look at other people to learn how to behave. So it's a good comparison, psychopaths and little kids. But, again, that leads to something uncomfortable, perhaps, which is to understand that that's how we all learned. So we all learned to do and say things that we didn't actually mean, which means that we've been trained from a very early age to not be authentic, to be imitators of other people. Now, if we get to a point where we can recognize that, and again, imitating other people is not necessarily a bad thing. I noticed that a lot of you guys are wearing shoes in here. And imitators and copiers. I was wearing shoes long before y'all were born. Now you guys are all wearing shoes, man. Yeah. I was sitting there one day, and I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to get some boots. Why did I want boots? I don't know. I've never really, I guess ever since I was a little kid I wanted boots. And I look back at these old pictures of myself, and I'm like this little kid, and I'm wearing boots and shorts. That's what happens when your dad lets you dress yourself. And so I'm wearing boots and some rust-colored shirt. It was a really ugly outfit, but I'm feeling it though because I got boots on. So maybe it's this desire to go back and connect with whatever that thing was that as a little kid made me want to wear boots. I don't know. But sometimes when you look at stuff like that, it's like, that's no big deal. You know, it's like you want to dress a certain way because you learned how to or imitated. That's no big deal. But man, sometimes it can be a big deal. Like when you realize that like your belief systems and like your morals, your political ideologies, these things that actually actively direct the course of your life. When you realize that those aren't really your own ideas, but those are shadows. They're imitations of other people's real ideas. And now you realize that your life is actually being directed by that. You know? I mean, I guess in a silly sense, I wonder how many people follow a dream that they don't really necessarily have for themselves. You know, like I think about, like I was, before I was a teacher a while back, I was a musician, and that led me, and that directed the course of my life. I could trace it for you, step by step by step by step by step, to the time I first decided I wanted to be a musician, to me standing in front of you right now. Literally, there's a direct line with a bunch of events that led me to stand in front of you right now, which all started with me walking through, like first wanting to be a musician, like hearing I remember specifically hearing a band, wanting to be a musician, hearing a band that I didn't even know existed. A friend of mine was listening to it on her headphones, and that made me go, that's what I want my band to sound like someday. To then fast forward to the point where I decided to actually do it. And then me standing in front of you right now. It's all a direct connection. It isn't just like, oh, you did this for a while. It led me exactly where I am right now. Now imagine if that wasn't my own dream. Imagine if that was somebody else's dream that I was imitating. A parent's idea, society's idea. That would mean that I've gotten way far along in life here, living something that wasn't authentic. And now you get to a point where you have to make a decision looking back. Do you just kind of say, change the complete course of your life? Do you just accept it, put your head down and go, well, my life sucks, it's inauthentic, and I hate myself and can't just wait to die, keep going in the same direction? Or do I now justify it and lie to myself and say, well, no, but, and then make it into a good thing? Those are kind of the three choices that we have at that point. And all of them are bad, by the way. You completely change the course of your life, well, then you might feel like the last fill-in-the-blank years of your life, 5, 10 years of your life was a waste. if you keep going and following that course of life, you're going to hate your life and hate who you are. What good can you possibly do in the world if that's you? What good can you possibly do for your family if you want to have a family someday, if that's who you are? Or you can lie to yourself, but you're going to know you're living a lie. You're going to feel inauthentic. And it's difficult to love your life and to therefore find some level of deep meaning and purpose in it. And then if that is you and you do have a family, well then someday you're going to have to stand as a hypocrite in front of your children and lie to them about how you chose this path, it's a good thing, and they should follow you and they should listen to your advice because you figured life out in some way. But that's how a lot of people do it. We learn from other people who believe that they have figured out some deep meaning in life, when actually they're probably imitating something that they've heard from a movie, or saw something, or they remember a song they loved a lot when they were growing up, and they just can repeat one line from it, and that becomes their motto for life, and they think, and it's passed on as though it's some level of deep truth or analysis. They're all ugly. But the sooner you can figure those things out, then you can commit to one of those poisons. And at least, at the very least, at that point, your life is your own. It's authentic because you made the choice of which way to go, but you made it consciously. And that's the hard part. We think that we make choices every day of how we live our lives, and it's true, we do, but what those choices are based on is the hard part. Are they based on something authentic or not? Now, once you've done some analysis and you figure some things out about yourself, everything from there forward is a choice. That goes back to the things that we were looking at with regards to early childhood trauma. You can't control how you got to where you are, but you can take control of where you are. Everything from that point forward is now freedom, even if everything in the past was bondage. So yeah, man, psychopaths. 10 minutes ago. Others?